Good morning. This is the moderator for the BBC Outreach event. I'll pass this over to Christy Underwood to go ahead and get us started.
Good morning, and thank you. Thank you to all who are attending our first web virtual outreach event today. We are happy to have you with us. I'm going to go over just a few things. Again, my name is Christy Underwood. I'm the Executive Officer of the Board of Barbering and Cosmetology. And with me today is Paula Johnson and Judith Bauman, who are both from the California Department of Public Health within the Safe Cosmetics program. And so before we begin, we just want to make a few comments on why we're holding this event today. We, of course, know that the industry has been hit very hard with the COVID-19 pandemic. And we are holding this today to kind of touch base with all of you on where we go from here. So regardless if you agree or disagree with how the pandemic has been handled, that's not what we're here to discuss today. We're not here to talk about what we could have done or what we should have done. For one, we're not those decision makers, so we just want to be where we are today and move forward. Today, we want to provide some background on who the board is and what we do, as well as hear from our friends over at the Department of Public Health. And so to begin, we're going to talk a little bit about the board. The pandemic time has been enlightening to all of us here at the Board of Barbering and Cosmetology, so we really want to talk about our role and what we do as a board. We have created a new document that's on our website, and it kind of gives a Q&A about what the board does. And if you're tuning into us online today, you can see that displayed on your page. So what does the board do? The board's purpose is consumer protection. In fact, it's stated in law that we're required to be a consumer protection agency. We do this by requiring specific education, testing for minimal competency, and then enforcing the laws. We don't test people to see if you can do a great A-line bob or to provide the most relaxing facial. We test to make sure that when you're doing those services, you perform them safely. And when someone leaves our testing site, we're saying that they are competent minimally to protect the consumer. So who is our board? Who are these people that meet on a quarterly basis? So our board consists of 9 members. And the majority of these members are what we consider or what we call public members. That means they have no financial interest in this industry. They're not licensees, they're not school owners, they're not students. They have no interest in the industry other than probably getting services. So remember, we're a consumer protection board, so that means the majority of our members are consumers and not licensees. 7 of our members are appointed by the governor, and with the remaining 2 being appointed by the Senate Pro Tem and the Speaker of the Assembly. Currently, our board has 1 manicurist, 1 barber, 1 cosmetologist, and 1 dually licensed barber cosmetologist. We've had lots of discussions or lots of questions over this time of the pandemic of who the members of the board are. So we wanted to give you kind of that insight into that. Next, we get a lot of questions about who and what the executive officer does. So as the executive officer, I'm appointed by the board. I oversee the daily operations of the board, which includes the licensing functions, the examination functions, and the enforcement functions, and much, much more. During the pandemic, many of you have called into our board meetings and have been frustrated because you feel you're not receiving answers. So we wanted to talk a little bit about why that is and why you're not receiving those answers. A board meeting is a public meeting held under the Bagley-Keene Open Meetings Act. To put it plainly, there are many rules that have to be followed for open meetings. Agendas have to be posted 10 days in advance prior to that meeting. If an item is not on that agenda, it can't be discussed. This is so that anyone that is interested can have an opportunity to know what the board is going to discuss and to participate in the public meetings to provide their input. In other words, as a board, we can't just change the regulations on you. It has to go through a process. It has to be discussed. An example would be when the board put together the cleaning and disinfecting of foot spas. One of our largest consumer harm issues that we have is the cleaning of the foot spas. Those regulations weren't just changed by the board. They had to have public hearings. The board would take public comment at all of its meetings and have an in-depth conversation at those meetings for it to, for those decisions to be made. So because all the items are discussed, all the items that are discussed at a board must be done in this formal process, the board can't engage or respond to public comments. Every meeting we have a section for just general public comments that are not regarding an item on the agenda. But board members can't respond. So that's why during the pandemic, it was very hard. We were all working from home, and many of the industry wasn't working at all. And people were calling in expecting to receive answers, which we completely understand. But by law, members just could not respond to those. And we wanted to make sure everybody understood that. It wasn't because we were ignoring the questions. It was just the legalities of a public meeting. One of our biggest questions that we've had during the pandemic is why we aren't advocating for the industry. The simple answer is that it's not our role and it's not within our authority. I've often, in interviews that I've conducted, used the example of the DMV. The DMV issues you a driver's license, but they don't advocate for you if you're cited for speeding. As state agencies, we're not advocates for those we license. It's just not our role. That certainly does not mean we do not appreciate the thousands of licensees that we oversee and that we want them to be safe, especially during these tough times. We have been involved in many discussions on the pandemic and how the industry has been impacted. But it is your associations that are your advocates. Many of you belong to associations and you may pay a fee to them, and that is usually for them to advocate for you. Some of those associations were involved in addressing the pandemic issues. We have links to all of these associations on our board website. So that's kind of an overview of the board, and we're really hoping that many of you that are on the call that may have called in during some of our public meetings understand now that we weren't trying to ignore you. It was really just we had to follow certain procedures. That's why we're holding this type of event, because in a little bit we'll be doing a Q&A. We hope to hold more of these events and more targeted to specific license types in the future so that we can really address your concerns directly. So I hope this information provides you with a better understanding of who the board is and what is required by law of the board and who are the advocates for your industry. That being said, we're going to move on to the next agenda item, which is our good friends from the Department of Public Health, and they are going to talk just briefly about their position. And at this time, I would like to welcome those speakers to the call.
Good morning, this is Paula Johnson.
This is Judith Ballman, hello.
Hi, I'll be brief so we can get to the questions quickly. I just wanted to give you a little overview of who we are. As I said, I'm Paula Johnson. I'm the chief of the California Safe Cosmetics Program at the California Department of Public Health. The Department of Public Health has a responsibility to coordinate the public health in an emergency situation such as the current pandemic we're in. We issue health orders and guidance to help promote best practices among local health jurisdictions, and we coordinate with local health jurisdictions. The industry-specific guidance documents that are posted on the covid19.ca.gov website are a collaboration between California Department of Public Health and CalOSHA and relevant departments and agencies across state. And this process has been coordinated by the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, and that's called GOBIZ for short, GOBIZ. Judy and I work in the Occupational Health branch at the California Department of Public Health. The Occupational Health branch promotes safe and healthy workplaces in California. And within that branch is our specific program called the California Safe Cosmetics Program. And our main mandate is to collect information on hazardous ingredients in cosmetic products sold in California and to make this information available to the public. By law, cosmetics companies must report to us products that contain ingredients that may cause cancer or reproductive harm, and we have a public searchable database where anyone can look up that information. As I mentioned, the industry-specific guidance documents for COVID-19 were a collaboration between CDPH and CalOSHA. Judith and I did not write the guidance documents, but we're here with you today to help interpret them, and we'll hopefully be able to answer all your questions or at least help find the answer. And we're really happy to be here for this opportunity. Thank you for the invitation. Unfortunately, I had a prior commitment at 11 o'clock, so I have to sign off then. I just wanted to let everyone know, but Judy will stay to the end.
Thank you so much, Paula and Judy. We really appreciate you being on this call with us today. So let's talk about what we should be focusing on now and how to stay safe. So again, we're not here to talk about how things happened in the past. Let's talk about how we are moving forward. If there's anything you all take away from this call today, I think it should be this. The website covid19.ca.gov/safereconomy. That's where you're going to find the most important information out there right now. And the reason why that is so important is because all your counties are different. The governor, as a state agency, we are following what the governor's orders are, as well as the Department of Public Health. However, certain counties can be stricter than what the governor has announced and what CDPH has announced, as you probably know. So we really want to direct you to this website because it is where you can find your specific county information. It's very critical that you follow what your county is requiring and what they are allowing. Next, we have developed 3 steps to reopen your establishment. So you can find this information on our board's website under our COVID-19 link. And we kind of just wanted to provide some assistance to you all on the best way to reopen your establishment. And there's certain steps there that you can take and additional resources that you can follow or that you can refer to. So what should you do? What should you be doing now that we're mostly back open? How can we make sure that we stay back open? Masks, masks, and masks. That's one of the most, if not the most important thing you can do in your salon or shop. You have to wear a mask. It is required. It is required in all of California. And it needs to be done by both you and your clients. Now, obviously, there is ways that if you're a barber, perhaps, you can ask them to remove that mask from their ear so that you can trim around the ear, but have them hold it to their face. And then if you're an esthetician or an electrologist and you're doing facial services, you want to make sure you have your mask on. And when that client can return to wearing their mask, you want to do so as quickly as possible. So again, the most important thing is to have those masks being worn by both you and your client. Social distancing. We must continue to social distance. Consider what you can do in your shop to social distance. Are you able to provide a station where it's every other station has a client in it? And if not, have you put up barriers? I know some of the salons have gotten very creative in what they've done. We are seeing all different kinds of barriers that are put up between stations, which is a great idea to increase that social distancing. Many nail salons are using the plexiglass. In fact, we've even seen it with the estheticians as well. So it's a great way to make sure that we're preventing that spread. One of the biggest things that we're seeing right now is we want to make sure that your shop or your salon is not a hangout. You cannot have people congregating in your waiting areas. The best thing to do is to have some type of texting method or email method where someone might check in but then return to their car and you let them know when they're ready to come in. It's those types of gatherings that will increase the risk of spreading COVID-19. So really look at your reception area, make sure it's not too crowded. I'm a person that loves salon services, and I often go to my salon and spend several hours there. And so I've had to change, as a client, I've had to change how I look at the salon right now as well. Eventually this is going to be under control and we can hopefully someday return to that. But right now our salons and our barbershops shouldn't be a hangout spot. We shouldn't be congregating in those waiting rooms. If you're an employee-based salon, encourage your employees to stay home if you're not feeling good. If you're an independent contractor, stay home if you don't feel good. Encourage employees that if they have been in contact with someone who's tested positive, to isolate for at least 14 days. This is tough, and it's tough for this industry because everybody has been out of work for so long. However, we really want to make sure that this industry is being as safe as possible as we are now open. A secondary barrier is highly recommended. For electrologists and estheticians, it's required. So wear a face covering. When you have a face covering on, add a face shield. Using a face shield and the face covering is just an extra barrier to protect you and protect your clients. And we would even encourage that for our cosmetologists and barbers. As I mentioned, I usually am the one who's spending 2 to 3 hours in my salon. So when you're the cosmetologist or the barber behind the chair and you're doing a color service, it's not a bad idea to add that protective barrier with a face shield and your face covering. So a few tips before we get into questions. No congregating, as we've already mentioned. We highly recommend no food or beverages in your salon. Really watch those break areas where employees might congregate, and that could end up increasing the risk of spreading. Follow the board's health and safety guidelines to the T. Really go back and look at those regulations where you're required to make sure all of your tools are disinfected and stored correctly. Make sure you're following the regular health and safety guidelines in addition to all of our guidelines, all of the guidelines that have been put out by the Department of Public Health. Really follow these guidelines, and that's going to help us prevent the spread or any type of contact tracing back to salons and barbershops. Now is not the time to be complacent in this industry. We are, as noted, finally getting back open, and we really want to make sure that the industry stays open. So we really want people to follow all of the guidance and all of the health and safety regulations. It's in the industry's hands to make sure that we continue to do this And the board is cracking down on salons that are in defiance of these orders. There are salons who refuse to follow any of these orders, even the ones as simple as masks, and have very crowded salons. And that is just not good for any of us. It's going to cause a spread, and it's going to be traced back to a salon or shop or esthetician or any of those locations. So we really want everybody to follow the guidance and make sure that we can prevent the spread in this industry. With that, we are now going to open for questions, and I'll turn it back over to the moderator.
Hello, this is the moderator. I'll go ahead and open up the Q&A panel for questions and answers. And right before I open it up, I just want to give a brief instruction how this is going to work. You'll click that Q&A icon at the bottom of your WebEx screen, and in that ask field, you'll type "I have a question," or you can actually type your question. We'll go in the order that questions are received, and I will unmute your microphone. You'll be given a chance to ask your question and ask any clarifying points. And just as a reminder to those members of the public and the licensees, please do not use any profane language when you are speaking, when you're unmuted or in that Q&A chat. If you are using profane language, you will be dismissed and asked to use professional language or relog back in with a professional name. So at this moment, I will go ahead and open up that Q&A panel for you all. All right, we'll go ahead and start with individual named Nadia Romeo. Nadia, I'll go ahead and unmute your microphone now.
Okay. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, excellent. I actually have two questions. One is, what is the status update, if you could give any, in terms of people who are in line and waiting for their exam to be taken to get their license? We just have so many candidates that we are looking to hire for many of my studios, and all of them are waiting to hear back from the state board on their exam date, and they said it's been obviously months given the situation, but they can't get hold of anybody and get anything kind of moving. So what is the status of that?
Hi, that's a great question, and thank you for asking it. We are, as you know, our exam sites were closed, and now we are open at half capacity. So it is a slow going. However, we are scheduled now for most of the people whose exams got canceled. But we are scheduled through, I believe, the month of November. So any specific questions, we highly recommend you send us an email, and we can look that up directly and figure out where you are and where we can get people their exams.
Okay, and just a follow-up question to that, I'm assuming you go in an order of first come, first serve, whoever's canceled first. So with that said, where are you at? Like those that are scheduled in November, when was their exam scheduled originally? Like how far behind are you?
So that specific information is, I don't have that information right in front of me. However, it's definitely information that we are tracking, and we can provide that to you if you email us. It was on a first come, first served basis. However, the people who were canceled were scheduled first in the order that they were canceled. I'm actually going to just pause for a second, and I'm going to turn it over to my deputy executive officer so she can actually answer that directly.
Hi, this is Carrie Harris. So as far as exams go, we have scheduled everybody who was canceled while we were closed, and we are scheduling pre-app candidates who have graduated. So the school needs to let us know if pre-app candidates have graduated. We don't want to schedule pre-app candidates not knowing if they graduated or not because so many schools are still closed. And we don't want to waste the spaces and give exam spots to somebody who hasn't graduated because they can't take the exams. So we're reaching out to schools and they are letting us know who's graduated and we're scheduling those candidates. The majority of candidates who we've received responses from who had anticipated dates through November have been scheduled. We have admission letters going out for the last week of November and the first week of December this week. So that includes a lot of pre-app candidates. And then regular applicants who applied, depending on their license type, from prior August and before, the majority of them have been scheduled.
Okay, thank you. And then my second question is kind of unrelated, really. Can somebody on the call maybe share with me why is it illegal in the state of California to do tinting, like eyebrow tinting, for example? It's perfectly legal in 48 other states. And in fact, I know that many salons advertise this as a service, and we get continuously bombarded with questions from, people who want to receive the service because they have received it somewhere else. And I don't really have a good answer for them as to why we are not allowed to do tinting.
The reason why that is not allowed is because it's the FDA, and we realize other states are allowing it. They don't have as strict as laws as we do. We have a specific regulation that says you cannot do a service that is disapproved by the FDA. And according to the FDA, there is no tint that can be applied to the eyes or eyebrows or near the eyes. So the problem is the manufacturers have not gotten their products approved by the FDA. We have not taken that service out of the scope of practice. It is still taught in schools. We are hoping that a manufacturer will get their product approved by the FDA, and then there would not be an issue with that.
I get that, but again, the 48 other states are offering this as a service, and exactly what you said, which is what's frustrating, that it is being taught in school. So why is it that we are being limited when the majority of the country is not?
And again, it's because we have a regulation that says you can't use a product that is disapproved by the FDA.
So until a manufacturer done something about that, the state of California is just going to do nothing about it.
That is something that the board would be able to make a decision on. Should the board want to update its regulations? It just so happens that the board is going to be updating its regulations. So that is something that I would highly encourage people to attend board meetings and bring that issue up when that health and safety regulations are discussed.
And when would that be? When would be the next discussion on this particular topic?
We have a board meeting in December, and you could certainly bring it up at that time during public comment.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be moving on to the next individual who has requested a comment. Individual identified as Laura. Laura Stenfel. I'll be unmuting your microphone now.
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you.
Great. Thank you so much for taking my question. I actually have two questions as well. My first question is regarding beard trims for barbers. I know that estheticians who do facials can do their facials as long as with the clients having removed the mask, and then they put it, like you guys said, put it back on as soon as they can. Are we allowed to do beard trims in that same manner? Do the beard trim and then have them put their mask right back on?
Yes, you are. Again, double check with your county, but I believe I have not heard that that's being prohibited.
Okay. And then my second question is for the there's been a rumor, I don't know what's true anymore and what is or whatever. And so we heard that there's a $3,000 fine for the client not wearing the mask in salons. And my question to that is like, I mean, it's such a complicated and divisive issue, I know, and I don't want to discuss that part of it, but like sometimes people say to us that we could be sued for discrimination for people that have actual health issues, and it's like a HIPAA violation for us to ask, you know, them to wear the mask, or that, you know, for some people that can't, for health reasons, wear the mask. Are we allowed to allow the people who have health reasons who can't wear a mask to be in the shop, or what's, and then is the fine actually $3,000? And can you give a little insight on that?
Sure. I have not heard of a fine.
Okay.
That, and I've not heard the $3,000 mark. I am aware of some counties who definitely are issuing citations for not wearing a facial covering. I haven't heard of this being done while in a salon or shop. Okay. So there are some counties that definitely are citing for no mask. Again, the highest I've heard is a $100 fine, but I have not, I don't know that of all the counties, what all the counties are doing. However,
oh, go ahead.
There is I would highly recommend you look at the guidance, again, regarding the individuals who may have health conditions where they cannot wear a mask. We do get asked that question a lot. It would probably be hard to do someone's hair if they wore a face shield, but usually it is recommended that they wear some type of covering. However, the people, I just would refer to your county to see what specific guidance they're stating on individuals that have a health condition already.
Okay, so the board, so you guys, or I don't want to say you guys, but the board or the people who would come inspect us, or however that would go, they're not the ones that would be issuing those citations. Is that right? I'm just trying to get this clear so that we understand like where this violation would come from, so that we can explain this to the customers as well. You know what I mean?
That's going to come from your county. We do not have a fine for not wearing a mask. What we will be doing is if there's a significant risk to a consumer's safety, that's when we could take action. So that when it goes back to those areas where there's lots of people in the shop, no one's wearing masks, there's no social distancing, there's lots of people in your reception area who are not in masks, that's when we're going to be concerned. But we do not have the authority to issue a fine for a mask.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that so that we could educate our people and our customers as well. I really appreciate you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Oh, and this is Judith Ballman with CDPH. I wanted to follow up a little bit and say that CDPH has a guidance for use of face coverings that explains the health exemptions and what to do in different scenarios. So you can look that up, CDPH guidance for face coverings. And when there is a situation where somebody has a health reason for not wearing a mask, an alternative is to wear a face mask with a cloth attachment at the bottom that you tuck into your shirt. So that is something that you could potentially have on hand to provide if that would make you feel safer, if that's something that you want to do in your shop. And yeah, similar for beard trims, we're also recommending to put to wear either goggles or a face mask when you're performing those services where the mouth and nose need to be exposed. Yeah, that's all.
Great. Thank you so much for that addition. And we'll return back to the moderator for the next question.
All right, we'll move on to the next individual who's requested a question. Give me 1 second. A lot of people are submitting questions, and it's moving the queue up and down for me. All right, so individual identified as Hannah Kimberly. All right, Hannah, I'll be unmuting your microphone now.
Hi, this is not related to a COVID question, but I just want to ask, why is it that California has no reciprocity with New York?
So we do have reciprocity with New York. So our reciprocity is with all states, and it's really more of a licensure by endorsement. If you've been licensed for 3 of the last 5 years, you can become licensed in California. Now, if you're going to New York, I don't know what their requirements are. I don't know what most of the other states' requirements are. So if you're coming to California, you have to be licensed for 3 of the last 5 years. That's what the law requires, and then you can get a license.
Okay, so from California to New York will all depend to New York, right?
Correct.
Okay, good. Okay, that's the question. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. We'll move on to the next individual who has requested a question. Individual identified as Shayna Rose. Shayna, I'll be unmuting your microphone now.
Hello, good morning. I would like more of an explanation on the steps the board is making to actually keep us in work. I understand you say that we need to wear masks, but we have no control of what anyone else is doing. And as an esthetician who's been out of work for 7 months with 4 children, and I've already lost 2 salons, I really want to know that my job is secure. I've worked really hard to have what I have, and it's all being ripped away by this. So I want to know that I'm not going to be out of work every Tuesday when the governor gives his COVID updates. I want to know that I'm doing my part. I've done my part this whole time. I want to know that the board has my back and that I'm going to be able to keep pursuing my career. I have thousands of dollars into student loan debt, and I'm not even allowed to use my license yet. I have to keep paying these fines to you guys, or I'm sorry, not fines, these yearly or bi-yearly dues to you for my license that I'm not allowed to use. So I really want to understand what actions are being made to keep us actually in work.
So again, we hear you and we feel for you, but the board's role is to protect consumers. The board, we're having this call today to hopefully encourage and get everyone on to do their part to not have the pandemic spread. I am certainly not a scientist. These decisions are made from the governor's office and with the advice of the Department of Public Health. So we understand where you're coming from, and we hope that this industry does not see another closure. But we also hope that everyone that's listening today does their part in keeping things, following those guidances so that we don't have a spread.
I understand that. However, there's a lot of non-essential businesses that do not follow these guidelines, and these spreads could be caused elsewhere, not at our salons. And so with estheticians being in that second tier, we can get shut down or put back outside in the middle of winter because these COVID numbers go up at no fault of our own. I can't work outside and do eyelash extensions outside. It's not an option.
Again, and we totally understand, and we hope we aren't there again.
But you're saying there's a chance that we can be closed down again, right?
I have no idea or any inclination that we may be closed down again. I mean, that's one of the problems with what's happening. We just don't know what's going to happen. So we are hopeful that we will not be closed down again, but I am certainly not in a position or have the expertise to say what's going to happen with COVID.
Okay, well, hopefully you guys will maybe think of not charging us for our license dues, for these upcoming next years, because we don't even have the money for that if we can't stay in work and be consistently working. And I understand it's not your job to advocate for us. However, we do pay you. You know, you show up in our salons unannounced, and we welcome you through the door, and we try to follow all your rules. I can't wrap it around my head why you guys want to advocate for us. We're women, most of us, who have children, and we're hardworking people who need to be in work. Thank you for your time.
Totally understand, and thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. We'll move on to the next individual who's requested a question. And just as a reminder to those submitting questions, we have quite a few. If you have a question or multiple questions, please only submit once. We're working to get to everyone in order, so please be patient. So we'll move on next to Kathleen Freitas. Kathleen, I'll be unmuting you now.
Hi, I was just wondering, are we still to perform temperature checks on our clients and keep a log?
That is part of the guidelines, and it may differ by your county. Some counties may require it. Does anyone on the line from CDPH have an answer to that? I believe in the guidance from CDPH, you're recommended to do the temperature check.
Yeah,
we're recommended to contact the client prior to them coming in to ask them to do a temperature check and ask them to see if they have any symptoms. But the state guidance does not say to keep a log or to take their temperature, but you would have to check with the local health department to see what their regulations are.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be moving on to the next individual who has requested for a question. Joyce Marie Partis. All right, Joyce, I'll be unmuting your microphone now.
Okay, I'm thinking this would be for Paula Johnson, who is with the California Department of Public Health. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. My biggest issue, I've had a salon in Beverly Hills for 42 years, and we as an industry have not had to deal with the county health department since the 1920s. The actual services that we perform are, we're dealing with skin diseases. In fact, I have many doctors, plastic surgeons, and dermatologists send me their clientele because we're dealing with various skin diseases. During this time that we were closed down, dental hygienists were working with the same exact PPE equipment, as well as medi spas were doing lip injections and Botox. And I'm happy that we're open now, but my goal is to get the health department to acknowledge us as healthcare professionals and not consider us non-essential, so we don't get shut down in the next round. Because what we do, we work hand in hand with the doctors, and we are not being acknowledged for that as professionals, and it's totally unfair, and we are not put into the correct category. If a dental hygienist can work, if someone can get lip injections, with the same exact PPE equipment, there's no reason why we cannot be working on acne and other skin diseases. So where do we go from here? I was going to be in touch with the health department. There's been a lack of knowledge in the aesthetic industry, and we need to get that changed.
First of all, so this is Paula. I agree that there is a lack of knowledge in your industry, and it's great to have these kind of events for you to be able to educate back to us to understand what you're doing. And so I have a question for you. So are you classified as an esthetician?
Yes, I'm classified as an esthetician, 42 years. One of the first in the state of California, I might add, since 1979. Okay, great. And I also want everyone on a call to understand that the governor's office just did announce last week that now all personal care services, including estheticians, are able to work across all tiers.
even if there's in the most strict tier, the purple area, you are allowed to open indoors. So just to make everyone aware of that. And I think that that is a result of feedback and this reevaluation of the guidelines, which is constantly ongoing. And so your comment is something that we can take back to the organization that's compiling information for future iterations of guidance, the GoBiz group.
Okay, who would you suggest we contact? Because we, as an organization, and I'm also a representative of the Professional Beauty Federation of California, which I recommend everyone on this call join through Facebook. We need representation through emails sent to the health department. We specifically, as estheticians, I don't want to go with, well, you know, now we're open and this is good, because I can't trust that the people are getting the information and that they understand that we work hand in hand with doctors. And I understand if the medi-spas are closed, if the dental offices are closed, then of course they're going to close us down. But as soon as those two are considered essential, then we need to be considered essential as well. And so we need to have a campaign. So where do I send emails? How do I get estheticians to gather together to make an awareness, not just an occasional phone call or email, but an actual gathering together of people to go to get this law changed?
And this is Christy. If you're calling within the PBSC, I'm pretty confident you have a lobbyist who definitely knows the answers to those questions. We can certainly only recommend that you continue to talk to your county health departments, as well as, you know, your local legislatures and the California Department of Public Health.
Okay, well, I thank you for that. Again, everyone join the Professional Beauty Federation, because we as a group need to have recognizable, we need to be recognized in Sacramento. This has never happened in our industry before. And, you know, insurance companies, real estate, on and on, they all have, you know, acknowledgement in Sacramento. We have not. We all assumed that the State Board of Cosmetology were our representatives. You know, we just found this out this year that you guys were not there to help us. And so this has come to quite a shock to the 620,000 people who've been out of work. And so my name is Joyce Marie Partisse, Joyce Marie Skincare in Beverly Hills. If anyone wants to help me get this information out to our health advisors. Thank you very much.
All right, this is the moderator. We'll be moving on to the next individual who's requested a question.
This is Judith Ballman. I wanted to do a quick clarification about the previous question.
Sure, go ahead.
You do want to check for temperature and or symptoms when a client arrives. We don't have a specification about keeping a log, but so yeah, our guidance is to, with a reminder, call or text to ask people to self-screen for symptoms, but we also want you to check for symptoms and or temperature when they arrive. But you should also make sure with the local health department that they don't have further specifications about a log being kept. Anyway, sorry, just wanted to make sure I gave the correct information.
All right. So the next individual who has requested to ask a question, individual identified as Michael Drask. I apologize if I mispronounced your last name. I will be unmuting you now.
Hi, thank you for taking the time, everybody. I actually had two questions in regards to the LA County guidelines. Maybe you'd be able to give me some advice on. One of them is it states that the aerosol generating procedures such as steam or oxygen treatment should be discontinued. I just wanted to know if you had any clarification on that part.
This is Christy Underwood, and I do not. I know LA has recently updated their guidance, and I personally haven't had a chance to get through it yet, but that's definitely a question that you would want to talk to them about.
Okay, cool. And then one more, maybe you don't have the answer to. It talks about the service provider wearing a face shield with a drape on the bottom of the edge. I haven't heard that anywhere. I didn't know if you had any information on the drape on a face shield.
Do our CDPH members have any info on the drape?
Yeah, there's more detail outlined in that document that I mentioned earlier that you could find if you Google CDPH and guidance for the use of face coverings. So what you could do is you could either simply tape a cloth to the bottom of the shield and tuck it into your shirt, or, the shield can be bought already made that way. But yeah, it's maybe not as well known information as it should be.
This is Polly.
Gotcha.
So the idea is that aerosolized particles coming out of your nose or mouth don't escape from the face shield either through the bottom or through the top. So a lot of the face shields have a visor on top already. Those are better because then that contains the aerosol. And then you can, like Judy said, tape something on the bottom, like a bandana or something on the bottom of the plastic on the face shield in the front, and then tuck it into the shirt collar so that contains the particles to the bottom.
And if there was a face shield that covered the bottom and projected outwards, would that suffice, or does it have to actually be a cloth drape?
If the face shield is purchased that already has a cover, then that's all right. I wasn't sure what you meant by projecting it outward, though. You wouldn't want to project anything outward. You want to continue.
Totally. There's a company that creates a face shield that goes around the neck and then comes from basically the neck all the way above, over the head rather than attaching to the head. That makes sense.
Yeah, right.
Okay. And then my just last question, as far as an electrolysis licensed esthetician performing radio frequency in the state of California, I was going back and forth on this, and I couldn't find clarification if they were allowed to perform at this current time, because during COVID, no radio frequency treatments were allowed, and now it's not really in the regulation, so I was wondering if you could clarify that point.
So for electrologists, I would highly recommend you talk to your county. I believe, sorry, I just accidentally muted myself. I'm looking to my staff that's on the call if they know the answer to that question. Pause for 1 second. Were you asking specifically about electrology, or are you asking about
electrolysis? Radio frequency specifically. I'm using a radio frequency treatment in aesthetics.
So I would highly recommend you email your direct question to us just to make sure we give you the correct answer.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, we'll move on to the next individual who has requested a question. And just as a reminder to those submitting questions, please make sure you are submitting to all panelists so you are in the queue. Please do not submit privately to any other panelists or just to the host. Your question will not be answered that way. Please click all panelists when you are submitting your question. So our next individual is Monique Clouet. Monique, I will be unmuting your microphone now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you for taking my question. In regarding the protective eyewear that the stylists are supposed to be wearing, do their regular vision glasses count as protective eyewear, or do they have to wear goggles or a face covering over those glasses?
So this is Christy. I don't believe it's required for hair services, but I wanted to see if our CDPH staff do know the answer to that. I'm a glass wearer myself, so I'm actually curious as well.
It is not required, but it is recommended to wear eye protection. And, face shield is best, or goggles. And maybe if you could, wear those, like the bigger glasses that go, the kind of, sunglasses type of things that would go over glasses would be even better. But I would say the glasses would be better than nothing. But Paula, what do you think?
Regular glasses do count as eye protection, so those would be fine.
Okay, thank you so much.
Great, thanks.
All right, moving on to the next individual, Danielle Varela. Danielle, I'll be unmuting your microphone now.
Okay, thank you. So my question is just to confirm that the licensing, the hairdressers and pedicurists, even if they are self-contracted, that when they do go into facilities such as elderly care, they do still have to follow the same regulations?
I'm not exactly clear on what you mean about going in for services. That currently is not allowed unless there is an actual establishment within those types of services. My personal opinion is you should be very careful in going into those areas because, as we know, the elderly are absolutely some of our highest at-risk population in the state. So,
okay.
Going into a lot of those types of areas have their own establishments, and while they can be open, we highly cautious that because of the risk to those individuals.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be moving on to the next individual, Alicia Orabella. Alicia, I'll be unmuting your microphone now.
Hi. So my question is, are there any plans to remove the outdoor option moving forward?
To my knowledge, there's not plans. We want to allow that to be still an option, but it's certainly not required anymore. So the governor has moved our services to the purple tier. They can be done inside. You will likely hear from our public health people that outside is always safer for the COVID spread. So while it's allowed inside, I don't know that there's going to be any changes to that. Outside is certainly still an option. And do our public health staff have any additions to that?
I would agree, this is Paula, that outdoor will likely still be an option because, as you said, Christy, it tends to be safer.
Okay. I feel it could possibly be like the underground beauty industry that's going rampant right now. And I feel as long as there's an outdoor option, it will always be on the table for the counties to push us back outside with limited services. I understand it's also legal to work out of home, but I do feel that there are many licensees that feel they're safer at home due to the ability to work outside. So I feel like it's just giving mixed messages, and I understand as far as being indoors with air and circulation, but I'm speaking specifically on sanitation and disinfection. That's it.
All right, move on to the next individual who has requested a question. Tareen Longmire, I'll be unmuting your microphone now.
So I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, great. I just wanted to share an option for folks. I'm also licensed as an esthetician, and I wanted folks to know that there are options for air purification units. Obviously, COVID is newer, and not many manufacturers have tested their machines specific to COVID, but per the CDC, I believe the COVID micron is is larger than what these machines can purify to. So the machines are a very good option, and I was hoping that you could post, if people were interested in having an air purifier, that you could post a link to it. It's not an air conditioner, it's not an air cooler or heater, it's an actual purifier that cleans your air so that it's safe to breathe in harmful particulates from whatever, from viruses, bacteria, dust, smoke, you name it.
This is Judith Ballman. I can talk about air cleaners a little bit, if that would be helpful. The EPA has a guide to air cleaners. You can look that up, and basically you want to look for one that has a HEPA filter, high efficiency particulate air filter, and you'll see that each air cleaner has a clean air delivery rate number, and the higher that number is, the more particles that it can filter and the larger area that it can serve. And on the packaging of those, there's all kinds of different devices and brands and products that you can get, but it will tell you on the packaging what the size of the room is that it's appropriate for.
I agree with all of that, and what I'm sharing is basically a similar option, and it does include a medical grade HEPA filter. And you're absolutely correct, and I agree with all of that. I was just wanting to share an option in case anyone needs one.
Oh, wonderful.
Or if there was a link there. Thank you. That was it. Thank you.
Do we have our moderator for the next question?
Apologies, I had WebEx freeze up on me just really quick. We'll move on to the next individual. Ed Pardini? All right, Ed, I will be unmuting your microphone now.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for taking my question. Winter's coming. We all know we're going to be faced with trying to deal with symptoms of who's got colds, who's got what. So what I was wondering if you guys are working towards or working with the governor as a health protection advocate for all of us, clients and stylists. Are you guys working to achieve a gold standard, operating standard? Because as someone else pointed out, we're all handling this at varying degrees. Our standards that we have established here, we're exceeding Cal OSHA requirements. We're actually sanitizing, steaming. We're doing all of it, and both on the salon side and the spa side. And yet, we're continually exposed to what happens outside of us, and there doesn't seem to be, there's like a cookie cutter approach to, well, we're going to shut everybody down. And yet there are those of us that are taking extreme measures to make sure that we stay healthy, that our clients are protected, and yet we're being closed down, and we're trying to establish these, what I would call a gold standard to stay in operation. And has there been any discussion between state board and the governor and the health officials to come up with a recommendation that if we follow that and we're able to obtain a gold standard certification recognition, that we could stay open, and it would give us all in our industry an initiative to do the right thing and to do something really meaningful and effective to get COVID under control and allow us to keep working.
This is Christy, and while I'm in discussions with the governor's office as well as the CDPH almost daily. We haven't necessarily talked about it in the way that you just put it, and I think that's a great idea and definitely something that I will carry on. I think you raise a valid point, and I know there's a lot of salons and barbershops and nail salons and even and the aesthetics who are really gone above and beyond and probably do have a gold standard. So I really appreciate you bringing that up, and it's definitely something that I will put on our talking point.
Yeah, I appreciate it because we need an initiative in our industry to encourage people to do the right thing and be incentivized that if they really stop with, is it recommended, is it not recommended, and all this, how do I get out of it? Because that's what we see currently going around with a lot of salons. Well, if it's not required, it's a recommendation. That means it's not required, and people are not grasping the situation. But we really need something to incentivize our industry that says, hey, if you conduct business at this level, you have a guarantee of staying open. And I think that would make everybody pretty much get on board with it, get those certifications and maintain them, just like other industries have them, so that they can continue to keep working and guarantee to the people that work there and to their clients that we're here to stay open. So thank you.
Thank you so much for that.
All right, move on to the next individual who has requested a question. Individual identified as Camille Johnson. Give me 1 second while I find you in my attendee list. All right, Camille, I will be unmuting your microphone now.
Thank you, moderator, and thank you, panelists. So my question was, so seeing that you guys are, I guess, more for the customer, that's the point, are you guys going to revisit as far as like cosmetologists and barbers doing services from home? Or is that something that's more county-based?
So as of right now, it's currently not allowed unless you have an actual home salon. And we are working right now on a personal service permit, which will allow a licensee to obtain a permit from the state board that will allow you to go into other locations to do services. It is not in effect yet. We are working on it, have been working on it for several years. It is close to the end of the line of being finally implemented, but it is still a few months away. So it is something we were actually trying to do long before COVID, and we continue to pursue implementing that permit. So keep an eye on our website for any updates on that.
And then also as far as travel then, because that sounded more like travel, or is that more like home-based, or is it all being discussed kind of at the same time during meetings?
The personal service permit will allow you to do services outside of a licensed establishment. So whether it's going into a client's home or going into a church and performing, services there, it will allow, the law right now says that services have to be done in a licensed establishment. And so the permit will allow you to do services outside of a licensed establishment. We do still have our mobile unit license, where those are the RV types of setups. And then we also have the ability for people to have their own homes licensed as a salon, as an establishment, if you meet the certain requirements. So that's where we're going with those.
And where could I find the definition of a licensed establishment? Could I find that like on your website, just on the basic website, doing research?
Absolutely. Yes, that information's on our website.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Bye.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be moving on to the next individual who has requested to ask a question. Individual identified as Tyson. All right, Tyson, I will be unmuting your microphone now.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. So I have two questions. I seem to be getting conflicting information. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
On beard trims and stuff that requires the client to take off their masks. I'm hearing today that that's permitted. Maskless clients.
Yes, we just you need to double check with your county to see if they have taken a stronger
Okay.
stance on that.
So the county, I can't find anybody in the county that talks specifically about barbering. What I heard from them was to use your common sense. So I did use my common sense. I did a hot shave. I had 3 forms of PPE, which the CDC, by the way, said eyeglasses aren't an effective PPE. I heard someone mention that a bit ago. So I had 3 forms of PPE and did the hot shave. The client obviously had nothing on. And then the next day he called me and said he tested positive for COVID. My question is, am I supposed to shut my salon down for 14 days? I tried to find the answer. Many people say, yes, it's recommended that you shut down for 14 days if you were considered in an at-risk situation. But nobody could tell me if 3 forms of PPE still puts you at an at-risk situation. The county said, oh, no, you're fine. As long as you don't go have symptoms, I wouldn't even get tested. I've been tested 3 times, and of course I shut my salon down, but I can't keep doing this every time someone tests positive. So I guess my question is to you, have you heard of this? What are salons doing when someone reports positive? That's all. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Judith, did you have a response to that?
Yeah. The state guidance does not say that you have to shut down.
Right.
And once again, I can't speak to the local health department. We
they don't
do
either.
have a document that says responding to COVID-19 in the workplace for employers.
Yeah, I read that. It doesn't say it doesn't speak to wearing multiple forms of PPE. It says
right.
It just
It just says what to do if there's an outbreak and how to identify people that were
come in 24 hours after and do an extensive cleaning. But I went in. I had a hazmat team come in 1 hour after, but that's not mentioned anywhere. So it sounds like it's just up to my common sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm wondering if I can go to jail or get sued if I open up my salon.
I don't think that there is any reason. No. It's up to your discretion to decide whether or not to close your salon. If there was an outbreak, which means 3 or more cases in your salon within a 2-week period, then you would want to talk to the local health department, and then they would help you make that decision. But in that scenario that you just described, no.
All right. I really appreciate your time. Thank you, everybody.
Of course. Yeah.
All right. We'll be moving on to the next individual who has requested to ask a question. Individual identified as Mandana. All right, Mandana, I will be unmuting your microphone now.
Hi, good morning. So I have a salon in San Francisco, and I have noticed that we have a very strict COVID-19 protocols. We've been told to leave our doors open, no blow dries. My question is basically about, for some services you need blow dries, and also using a fan in the shop. And also, when it gets a little colder and it starts raining, can I close the door? That's my question.
So this is Judith Bowman again with CDPH. We recommend keeping windows and doors open whenever possible. But yes, if it's raining or if it's very cold, then you're not going to do that. And there is nothing in the state guidance about blow dryers. As far as fans, we say we use them, but make sure that they're not blowing directly from one person to another person. So we would say, use that, apply that wisdom to blow dryers as well. And I would also recommend, so yes, you're doing the right thing by looking at the local health department's guidance about blow dryers and fans, and I think you might want to recheck, because I believe that San Francisco has change that position on blow dryers at this point, if that was the case earlier. Did that answer your question? Was there something I missed?
Yes, mostly. Although I still can't figure it out because I do call 311 and I have called the health department in San Francisco to ask these questions, and they also don't know. So that's why I thought that maybe you would have a better idea.
They do have information for you online as well.
Yes, I have looked, but there's nothing specific on the
about
blow dryer, on the fans. And so in the beginning, they send us emails saying that this is what we needed to do. Do not use a blow dryer. Leave your door open. Do not use fans. And then suddenly I can't, but there's nothing on their website. But they did send us an email. So when I called 311, they weren't able to answer the question. So I thought maybe, but thank you for your response. I think, I'm wondering if when the inspectors do come into our shops, do they go by what each county is prescribing for us to do, or do they go by what the state is saying?
So this is Christy, and our inspectors are, we're not going to be citing for things that are specific to the county or for the guidelines.
Oh,
so that's not something that we would be citing for.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, have a great day.
Great, we'll move on to the next individual who has requested to ask a question, Rebecca Martin. Great, Rebecca, I'll be unmuting your microphone now.
Thank you so much. A couple questions. Being that estheticians are back at work and we are practicing our PPEs, are we allowed to continue with waxing services, specifically Brazilians?
Yes, there's not been, there's nothing that prevents the Brazilians from continuing.
Okay, great. And then the other one is when we are working with the public, are we still maintaining I'm going to just say like the laundry services, are they undressing and putting robes on, or are they still wearing their street clothes and laying on the tables?
Nothing specific about clothing. There are some specific guidelines that are pretty much the same as what the board regularly requires, but I definitely would refer you to the guidance and then also double check your county guidance to see if it's become more strict.
Okay. And then lastly, I have a question on the hyaluron pen. Seems to be a gray area. Do you have any information that you can share on that? Is it considered injections, even though it's a high pressured pen? It's still infusing under the skin like hyaluronic acid. So I just wanted a little more clarification if this is something that is legal for us as licensed estheticians to use.
Thank you for asking that question. It is absolutely not legal. The hyaluron pen is not within the scope of practice of an esthetician at this time.
Okay, and is this now on the website that we can communicate this to other esties?
I'm waiting for my, basically it's the scope of practice. So the scope of practice for an esthetician is what defines what an esthetician can do, and the services of that pen are not within the scope of practice. So that is why estheticians cannot perform it.
Cannot perform it. Okay. And then on, sorry, I do have one more. On the lash training, there's been a lot of talk about being licensed or not. And is that my understanding that you must be a licensed esthetician in order to certify lash training? Is this correct?
We do not regulate people who are doing this type of training. What we regulate is that we want to make it clear that anyone that's doing lashes must be an esthetician or a cosmetologist. And I think that's been the biggest, confusion, is that you can go to some of these certification courses, from a person who's not licensed, from possibly a manufacturer, and you think that, or many think they don't need a license to perform that service. You absolutely need to be a licensed esthetician or cosmetologist to perform lash services, but we do not issue an additional certification or license for you to teach those courses.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And I'm sorry, you guys. It just keeps going. I promise this is my last one. So I'm an educator for a aesthetic school. And the reason why I'm asking all these questions is because I just definitely want to confirm what we've already would know as far as common sense is. However, I just wanted to make sure, that's why I'm on the call today, because I just wanted to make sure that I am getting this clarified and that I am sharing the right information. So the last one is the microblading. Estheticians are asking about, can they microblade by taking a course? Kind of the same thing with the lashes. Or would a tattoo certification be enough for them to do microblading?
Yes, we would consider microblading a form of tattooing.
Perfect. Okay, that's good.
Okay.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be moving on to the next individual who has requested to ask a question. Anita Singh. Give me one second while I find them in my attendee list. All right, Anita, I will unmute your microphone now.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. I just wanted to know if threading services are permitted during this pandemic that we are going through.
So there is a section in the guidance put out by the Department of Public Health for threading under the personal care services. Threading is not regulated by our board. So you want to double check with your county, and you want to double check the guidance that CDPH has put out.
And sorry, where do I find that information?
You can find that information on the California COVID link.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, we'll be moving on to the next individual who has requested to ask a question. Individual identified as Olga Mendoza. Olga, I'll be unmuting your microphone now.
Good morning. I wanted to ask you guys, there's been a few, like Indeed, I believe, has posted jobs for mobile esthetician services. Is the board allowing that? Is it legal? Like if I apply for them?
That is not allowed. It is not legal, and we highly recommend that you file a complaint with our board.
Okay. And then the other question is, so are we allowed to use Esteem during a facial treatment? Or is it recommended?
I do not believe there's any guidance that says you should not use Esteem. Judith, did you have any? Are you aware of anything? I don't believe that it's in there.
No, I hadn't seen anything like that.
Okay, and then
yeah,
you guys mentioned the personal permit service. Is that something that the estheticians will be included in that?
When that becomes effective, it will be available for certain services within licensing categories. So I would check our website. We have a section on our website for proposed regulations, and you can find that information there.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
And real quick, again, I just want to make sure everybody understands that we might be forgetting to say it, but always check with your county, because there's many times that we might not know of a county that has made a stricter requirement. So always check with your county.
All right, this is the moderator. We're going to move on to the next individual, Oscar Panetta. I'll be unmuting your microphone now. This is the moderator. Oscar, you are unmuted if you'd like to ask your question. All right, this is the moderator. Looks like Oscar's mic is unfortunately not working, but he did type his question into the Q&A, so I will go ahead and read it out loud for our speakers to answer. He asked, any idea when skincare clinics are going to have authorization to open?
So as we mentioned earlier, the governor last week actually Dr. Galley announced last week that skincare services were moved into the purple tier. So state guidance allows those services, but you must check with your county, as many counties are very different than what the state guidance allows. So check with your county.
Okay, and this is the moderator. We'll move on to the next individual, individual identified as Wendy Perez. Wendy, I will be unmuting your microphone now.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. My first question is, I would like a recommendation of the board if you would like schools to pre-apply at this time, or because of inconsistency in attendance and opening and closing or being behind, if it's better to apply upon graduation. What is the recommendation of the board?
Hi, this is Carrie. I would suggest that you, for right now, submit regular applications and not pre-applications. Every week we're going through and we are evaluating where we're at, and we're not at a point right now where we can get away from asking whether pre-app candidates have graduated or not. So I would suggest just submitting the initial application and saving yourself and or the student the $9 of the pre-application fee.
Thank you so much. Until told otherwise by the board, or until things clear up, would be great. And can I ask one more question, please? A follow-up to somebody else's question? Please, thank you so much. The eyelash extensions, I did not realize that you were supposed to be licensed and then to get certified. Does that also stand for makeup and extensions and braiding?
So there is an exemption in our law for braiding. I would look up the law on that, but you absolutely have to be an esthetician or cosmetologist to apply makeup for a fee. If you are working and receiving compensation for doing a service that is clearly noted in the scope of practice of one of our license types, then you need to hold a license in that area.
And how about extensions too?
Yeah, but you would need to have a license, but you want to double check and you know, often depends on how the extensions are being done. I would recommend you look at the exemption section when it comes to braiding if there's some leeway there. But for the most part, when people are going into salons and getting hair extensions and then getting a style, that requires a license.
But makeup, no, they have to be licensed.
Absolutely.
Ah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be moving on to the next individual who has requested to ask a question. Patty Glover, but it looks like they may have dropped off the list. I'll go ahead and, it looks like they posted their question in the Q&A, so I'll just go ahead and read it. They asked, are pre-apps being accepted at this time?
So that kind of goes with the answer that was just recently provided by Carrie, that we are accepting them, but again, we might prefer and you might do better off with just submitting a regular app at this time.
All right, and this is a moderator. It looks like our next individual who has requested to ask a question may also not be in our attendee list, but let me double check. Eleonora Friedman. Unfortunately, it looks like they dropped off. She had a question that she posted. Apologies, the Q&A keeps bouncing around, and I have to keep scrolling to find it again. Is Esteem allowed to be used during a facial treatment? Is it safe?
And yes, that is allowed. Thanks.
Okay. Next individual is identified as Greg. Greg, I will be unmuting your microphone now. This is the moderator. Greg, if you would like to ask your question, you are currently unmuted.
Okay, my question is I'm a single owner operator, and what is required as far as let's say I'm working on an individual, and what is okay to have sitting and waiting in the shop? Say if he brings a friend or a wife or child. So what is safe as far as numbers?
I would really focus on making sure that people can be social distanced. If you're a single-owned shop and you have, even if you're doing, say, a child's haircut and their mom is standing nearby them, they're from two households, they're the same household, so I think that's acceptable. But when it comes to your waiting area, I think you really need to make sure you can social distance, make sure people are wearing masks, and that's when it's going to get troublesome, as if you have too many people where they're sitting next to each other coming from different households.
No, I do. I keep it to the individual family at a time. I don't allow any more than those that are in at that time slot. So, okay, I guess my question's been answered. Because I'm trying to keep it to a minimum, but then there's always somebody, well, why can't I? Or he's in there, why can't I? So, just keep them out when you can then.
There you go.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, we'll be moving on to the next individual identified as Georgette. Georgette, I will be unmuting your microphone now.
Hi. I'm talking on behalf of Georgette. Thank you so much for your events that clarifying all the questions for people they have. I'm an administrator at cosmetology school. So basically, we are hearing all kind of, questions from, or we get calls from different schools that basically they are trying to find out whether we can be open or not, and we basically getting information from each other, all the schools. I just want to know if we are able to open for on-site education, like 1 or twice a week.
So this is Christy, and according to the state board, we consider the school's portion of obtaining your practical operations the same as a salon. So you want to follow those guidelines. However, again, I highly recommend you talk to your county because different counties have different rules for returning to school. So really check with your county on that question.
Like when you're referring to county, is that the health department or city or?
That's your county health department.
County health department. And we did, but they are basically not answering us, and we sent so many emails and everything like that. We haven't got any clear answer for that. So sometimes the schools, like in the past 2 weeks, they were open, and all of a sudden they closed. So now we don't know what is the plan for this week. Are we going to be closing? Are we going to be opening? So there is no any kind of any kind of information that we can get by email or something like that we can plan on.
So that's terrible. I'm sorry that you're in that situation. Our oversight of schools is limited to the fact that we consider the areas where practical operations are done, we consider them to be open, and we consider them to be following the guidance of a salon. But again, it really is up to your county and what they're doing with schools. So unfortunately, I can't answer that question for your county.
Okay, so let's say the county says that you can open, but at the same time, can be open to do all kind of clients.
Yes, that would be fine as long as you're, even in a school, when you are providing services to a consumer, you still need to follow the guidance that has been put out by the CDPH.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. You're welcome.
All right, we'll be moving on to the next individual who's requested to ask a question, Kathy Pascal. Kathy, I will be unmuting your microphone now.
Hi.
Hello, we can hear you.
Okay, good. And actually, I typed a question, but you guys have answered pretty much what I needed to know. But the gentleman that was talking about not being able to get answers from the health department, the problem that I've run into when I have questions is it's almost like, sorry, I'm babysitting. The right hand and the left hand aren't speaking to each other. So if, for instance, I call the health department, they say refer to the governor, and then you call your assemblyman or the governor's office, and they say to refer to you guys. So that's, you can't get an answer from anybody because it seems like they're running you in circles.
Understood. And I think that's definitely something we've recognized as well and are hoping to improve on that. I can tell you that I personally was on various calls last week with 3 very large counties in the state. There are some counties that haven't been as open to working with us as others, but we're hoping to improve on that so that we can get clear information out. But I appreciate that comment, and we agree with you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much. And just so I noticed, I noticed people asking about personal care licenses, and just to throw it out there, a lot of people think that personal care license is an attachment to like a mobile license, and it is not. It's a different type of license, and I think people are really getting that confused. A mobile license entails you buying a vehicle, and you're a mobile salon. The personal care license is not the same thing. It's for very limited services. So I just hope people understand that before they decide to do that, and it's the wrong thing.
Thank you for that. That's a very good description. And as we get closer to implementing the personal service permit, we will provide a lot more information on our website of the limitations of that permit. But thank you so much for that comment.
Okay, and one more really quick question, and this didn't get answered. The intake forms that we fill out at the location where I rent a room from, the intake forms that we do that the health department recommended, do you guys have any idea how long we should be keeping that information? Because they can't tell us. You ask them and they can't tell us. Is it a month-to-month thing? Do we need to keep it till someone says throw them away? But at that point, you could have thousands of pieces of paper.
I do not. Judith, do you have any suggestion on that?
About how long to keep the log of people's like temperatures and symptoms and things like that?
Right.
Well, you know, the guidance doesn't say to keep a log, the state guidance, so I can't really speak to it.
Okay.
So that would be another local health department.
Yeah.
If they have a specification about a log, then they should answer how long they should keep it for. But I would guess 2 weeks, but my guess is,
okay.
Not worth much here. So
it was one of their suggestions, and where I work, we do everything suggested, plus what is required.
Yeah. Oh, you do. That's good.
Because we want to stay open. But I mean, like I said, we could have thousands of pieces of paperwork, but the health department cannot give you an answer to that question I just asked. So, right. You could have a bank vault full of papers by the time.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So if there's any way, maybe if you guys have contact with them, and maybe that's a piece of information you guys could find out, that would be super helpful. Because we actually have the same people reoccurring all the time. So how long do we need to keep that piece of paper? So anyways, so I know you got a lot of questions, so I'll let you go.
Thank you.
Thanks for hosting this, and be safe.
All right. Just as a reminder to the participants in the meeting, we are going to be ending at 12. So if you could please keep your questions as brief as possible so we can get through as many as possible, that would be great. We're going to move on to our next individual, Denise. Denise, I will be unmuting your microphone now.
Hi there. I had a question in regards to someone who kept removing their mask. I was quite uncomfortable. I enforced the mask rule religiously, and every time I walked away, she kept taking it off. I'm not sure how I should have handled that. She had color on her head. And also, are we still at 25% capacity, or are we moved up to 50?
So it depends on your county for the capacity. I know several counties have been loosening that requirement on capacity, so that we at the state do not have a capacity requirement. And as for your client, that's a terrible situation. Definitely my suggestion is to keep reminding them that we absolutely have to be wearing our masks. I'm not sure if Judith has anything additional that she would like to add.
The guidance does say you have the right to refuse service if somebody won't comply with that requirement.
My problem was
yes.
I enforced it and I demand that they come in with it. She took it off during her color service. I mean, I sent a text out prior, you must wear a mask, it's enforced, it's all over the windows. She was like a child. She put it on when I asked her to, and when I walked away, she took it off, and I'm terrified to get turned in for not following the rules.
Right. Yeah. Well, you could refuse service. And are you the owner?
I am.
Yeah.
And everyone wears a mask.
It's your
always.
responsibility to make sure everyone is wearing a mask when they, unless they're receiving a treatment to the nose or mouth area, or have a specific exemption. That's a permissible exemption. But yeah, I guess that's all I have for you is you could refuse service.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be moving on to our next individual, Stephanie Young. Stephanie, I will be unmuting your microphone now.
Before I go and replenish my sanitizer, are we switched to the hand cloth, the cloth sanitizers now, or the disposable ones?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear, you cut out a little bit. Could you repeat your question?
Yes, and are we switching from sanitizer to hand wipe sanitizers? From the liquid to the hand wipes? I heard something like that.
For what?
For just the sanitizer that we keep in our salon. I heard that we were no longer to use the liquid sanitizer. We're supposed to use the hand wipes now.
So no, there's not been any change to our regulations for any disinfectant. There's guidelines for definitely encouraging hand sanitizer, but there hasn't been any change to the regulations for what you currently do.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
All right, we'll be moving on to our next individual, Stephanie M. Stephanie, I'll be unmuting you now.
So actually, my question was already answered. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, in that case, we'll move on to Loretta Bernardi. Loretta, I'll be unmuting your microphone now.
Hi, thank you. I'm Hairstylist in Sonoma County, and I've read so many things, and we are abiding by them all, but what I don't see clear is I'm wondering, okay, so I'm sorry. trying to remember. Okay, I want to put it right. When you have a break in your schedule, and you have clients before and after, and are you allowed to sit in the shop and wait for your next client, or should you go outside and remove yourself? That's one of my questions.
Yes, you are allowed to stay in your shop. We just highly recommend the social distancing.
Okay. I have another question, and then it'll be done. But so as far as scheduling, should we only be taking appointments only, or what do you recommend as far as walk-ins?
So we certainly recommend appointments because that helps control what happens in your reception areas. But it is not a requirement. It's just what we recommend.
Okay. Well, that's pretty much what I was really curious about. Everything else has been answered, and I appreciate this. This is like the first in 33 years of my career, and I really appreciate that you guys did this. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, we'll be moving on to our next individual identified as Tiffany. Tiffany, I will be unmuting your microphone now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, I just want to start off by saying thank you guys for doing this. I appreciate it. It's definitely helped with a lot of questions that I had. I'm actually an esthetician instructor in San Diego County. Our school is obviously shut down in March 16th. And we just opened up mid-September or so. And during that time, we tried to do as much distance education as possible, but obviously that was a little hard due to the quality of education online for aesthetics. And I just received an email stating that state board was going to change coming January 1st. And I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about this too, because this is a little bit of a concern for me just due to COVID and all the students that have been impacted. Some were able to come back, some were only able to do distance education. And during that time, I tried to do my best to at least have them prepped for state board, regardless of when they're going to be able to come back or when they're going to be able to graduate and get their tests and so on. My concern is that the CIB comes out December 1st, and I only have a month to get all these students that have, their tests back from March to come in and practice the new state board guidelines. Can I ask as to why this decision has been made during this times in January, and if there is any way that I can put my voice out there to possibly get it pushed back, at least just until state board practical is all cut up?
So the change is we offer the NIC exam, and the change actually was quite some time ago, and we've been pushing it back. But I think if we could get you to email us so that we have your name, and I could have you talk with our exam staff, I think it's not as bad as it seems. So the esthetician is actually having very minimal changes to it. So if you could possibly email us your question, I think we could help you through that and ease your concerns about that.
Okay. And then that email is just on State Board and Barbering and Cosmetology, or is there a specific email that I should be utilizing?
Yes, just send it to our Barber Cosmo general email, which is on our website, and that will get forwarded to our exam staff, and they'll respond to you directly.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your help.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go ahead and move on to our next individual, Joni Donella. Joni, I will be unmuting your microphone now.
Yes, hi, good morning. Thank you for taking my question. I guess I'm piggybacking on the person right before me. It is about state board exam, but mine is about electrology specifically. So I do own a school for electrology, and I know that the electrology exam is not being offered at this time, and I'm wondering what the board's plan is for the exam.
Hi, Joni, it's Christy.
Hi,
we
Christy.
should have a plan for that this week. I actually have been corresponding with our NIC holders of that exam just this morning, actually. So hopefully we'll have an answer sooner rather than later on when we are working on a plan to get that exam back going. So hopefully I have an answer for you this week.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, we'll go ahead and move on to our next individual, Melody Askey. Melody, I'll be unmuting your microphone now.
Hi, thank you so much for taking my question. I'm an esthetician, and like maybe some others, I work in a small room. There's no air circulation, no windows. I think it's a dangerous situation and really kind of a setup for COVID. I've run across an alternative place that I think would provide a lot better circulation for my clients and as well as for my safety. But before I do any renovations, is there anyone that I can talk to personally just to make sure that this would be an okay alternative?
Here at the state board, we would probably not be able to assist you, but if you'd like to email us to our Barber Cosmo email, we could try to work with CDPH and see if they might have some suggestions that you could talk to directly.
Okay, so just do a general email and someone there will take this further. They won't just set it aside.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And just really quick, just another comment. I wanted to comment on brow tinting and henna as well. I think that would open up great revenue for estheticians. It allows clients to keep their mask on, whereas a facial, you can't really keep your mask on. So it would be a lot safer. And I think I'm hoping that you guys will loosen up, or whoever is in charge of loosen up some of the reins on this. As far as getting FDA approval, if these places are selling to 48 other states, they're probably not going to pay the money and jump through all the hoops to get FDA approval for just California. So I'm hoping that without that FDA, someone can loosen up the reins, because things are changing now, and we're going to have to get used to these changes and not assume that things are going to go back as business as usual. It's not business as usual.
Definitely hear that. And again, in December, we're going to be talking about our health and safety regulations, so keep an eye out for that. And I wanted to see if Judith had any comments on the airflow situation.
Yeah, well, what was occurring to me is one of the options is the portable air cleaning machine that we talked about earlier. You can get an air cleaner that will remove particles from the air, and that's definitely what comes to mind. But also, I agree, like, email them or me, and I would ask our indoor air quality experts what their specific advice would be for a room with no ventilation, with no windows or doors or anything.
Yeah, I'm definitely not going back to that situation. I mean, I don't want to.
Yeah. So you want to know about the new room?
Yes. Yes.
Which, what's the situation with the new room?
So the
no
new
doors or
room
windows still?
it's attached to a nail salon. It's slightly a tinted structure. It can allow for a great amount of airflow to come through, but it is protected. And of course, I would follow all of the other disinfectant safety rules and regulations that are set up.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's the advice for ventilation, is as many air windows and doors that can be open, and to have an air cleaning device and updated HVAC system. And, you can hire an industrial hygienist if you have the resources and means to do that, who can give you specific advice about your space. And if that's something you want more advice about, you could also email me about that. I would look into it for you.
Oh, what's your email?
safecosmetics@cdph.ca.gov. It's on the screen if you have the screen.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be moving on to the next individual, Andrea Swanson. It looks like they're no longer in our attendee list. So I'll go ahead and move on to our next individual identified as Greg. Greg, I'll be unmuting your microphone now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi. So my question is about the beauty on demand apps like Glam Squad, Priv, Vincent, that are all sending cosmetologists, makeup artists, and manicurists to homes, offices, how they get around the law of doing home visits.
They aren't getting around the law. It is illegal, and we do welcome those complaints, and we welcome. We may already have open investigations because as of right now, it is not legal.
Okay, so if a cosmetologist is signed up with them, we could potentially lose our license or get fined for working for them.
Yes, because you would be performing services outside of a licensed establishment. So there is a fine for that right now.
Okay. It's just strange to me that they're allowed to operate these businesses then if it's not legal.
All right, we'll be moving on to our next individual, Judy Noyes. Judy, I'll be unmuting your microphone now. This is the moderator, Judy. If you'd like to ask your question, you are unmuted. All right, it seems like Judy's microphone is not working, so we will be moving on to our next individual who's requested to ask a question. Individual identified as Sheree. It appears that they have left our attendee list, so we'll move on to Lisa. Lisa Lufas, there she is. Okay, Lisa, I will be unmuting your microphone now. Lisa Lufas, you're currently unmuted if you'd like to ask your question. All right, it appears that Lisa's microphone is not working, so we will move on to our next individual. Individual identified as Nicole. Nicole will be unmuting your microphone now.
Questions, actually. So my first question is, I do a lot of color services that last about 8 hours, and usually I would take in other clients during their processing times. I have a large studio salon, and I'm by myself, and so I have 2 chairs that are like 20 feet apart. Am I allowed to do 2 clients at the same time, if that is the case?
Do you believe the guidelines are specific to that? Judith, do you know the answer to that one?
I would still follow all the, the new COVID guidelines and everything for disinfection and sanitation.
The guidance does say you're only supposed to work on 1 client at a time. But yeah, I'm curious about your specific situation of such long periods between clients. And so it kind of makes me want to look into it a little more.
Okay. And there would definitely be social distancing. Yeah.
Right. Because normally you would want to, you change your gloves, you wash your hands, and, between clients, like doing the whole routine that you would do between clients. And yours does seem like a special case, which makes me want to look into it more. So feel free to email me.
Okay.
And I will ask around and see what the people think. But that is what it says in the guidance, that you should,
Right.
You have to work on one person at a time. So
Okay, thank you.
what,
And then
yeah.
my next question is just to clarify, eyelash extension services are allowed now?
Yes, they are.
Okay. And then my third question is, I came from New York and we charge tax on all like services, not excluding retail, but haircuts and color services. Does California do that?
That is not within our jurisdiction, so I would not know the answer to that.
Okay. Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
All right. At this time, we'll be closing the Q&A, and I'll be passing over comments over to Christy.
Thank you. So I want to thank everyone. I'm sorry we did not get to everyone's questions. We definitely will be doing this again, hopefully very soon. We hope you found this very useful. I want to thank the California Department of Public Health, Judith and Paula, for being with us today. As you can all imagine, it is a public health issue, so we're all very busy. And so I appreciate them taking their time out of their day to be on this with us. And I really want to thank all of you for tuning in. We had close to 400 people on this today. And we, as I said, we will do it again. Please feel free to email us if you have any questions. It is at our email is barbercosmo@dca.ca.gov. You can email us and put in the subject line that you were on the outreach event, and then we will look at those and try to get you an answer as quickly as possible. Again, I thank you so much for participating on this, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.